Hello guys, welcome to another little tutorial. Today we're going to look at the basics of animation in After Effects. We're going to use a little pendulum to create some simple animation and learn those basic concepts. If we go to the software view, I've got a little asset here. It's just a little pendulum. I'm going to drag that into my project window and that will appear in here. We can see a little preview of it, and I'm just going to drag it onto my composition window and we can get a little look at it. So this composition is quite small, not really big enough for us to animate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new composition, and we can set the size of this. Let me see, let's get our standard sort of HD TV. We'll go 29 frames per second, 1920 by 1080, that is good. We'll set our duration here, mine is set to 10 seconds. I'm just going to leave that like that and hit OK. Will give us a new composition, and I'll just drag that little pendulum in there. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So all we're going to do today is we're going to make this pendulum swing back and forth as if it was part of a grandfather clock or it was just swinging. If I get my rotation tool and I rotate this, you'll see that it rotates around the center little anchor point here. So just press Ctrl Z to reset that back. I actually want this to rotate around this point here. So I need to move this little anchor point. To do that, I am just going to grab this little tool, the pan behind tool, and I will move that anchor point up here. Now with my rotate tool, we'll see that this rotates a lot better. It rotates more like a pendulum. So how do we animate this? Down here at the bottom we have what's called the timeline window. Every layer that we have here, every asset will be stacked in here in a layer, and they all have their own little timeline, which is indicated by this sort of grey-blue bar. When we animate in After Effects, this isn't like traditional hand-drawn animation like you would have seen in old Disney films, where they would have drawn every frame by hand. Instead, in After Effects, we use what's called keyframes. So if I click this little arrow here and click the transform, we'll see that we have all these different properties: position, scale, rotation, opacity, etc. All I have to do is I create a keyframe at one point. So let's say rotation. I'm going to rotate my pendulum. There we are. It's rotated at 31.9 degrees. Let's just set that to 35, a nice round number. And I'm going to click this little stopwatch button here. We'll create a keyframe, and we can see that indicated by this little blue diamond. If I come forward, say 1 second, and I rotate this further, let's go minus 35 this time, and we'll just type that in. Get it exactly 35, we see that we now have another little keyframe here. Now while this little stopwatch icon is active, anytime I make any change at all, it will add a keyframe at the current time that I have highlighted, as seen by this little blue bar. So we've added these two keyframes, and you can see automatically that the animation is being created for us. Rather than drawing every single frame, we just establish our key points in the animation, i.e. those keyframes, and After Effects does the rest. If I press spacebar on my computer, I can preview that animation. Press spacebar again to stop. So there we have one little swing of this pendulum. What we can do is go to the 2 second mark. I will take this first keyframe where it was over to the left. At 1 second it swings to the right, and at 2 seconds I want it to swing over to the left again. So with that first little keyframe, I'll hit Ctrl C to copy it, and then Ctrl V to paste it in that 2 second mark. So now I have my pendulum swinging back and forth. I've added in keyframes at each position, and as I scrub through the timeline, we can see that it moves to those positions automatically. So my composition is 10 seconds long. I'm just going to have this little pendulum animation on repeat. So I'm just going to set this to 2 seconds long, in line with that last keyframe. A couple of ways I can do this. A really simple way is this little grey bar here. If I come over to the right, we've got a little blue tab. I can grab that and shrink my composition right down. Now I want to make sure I'm precise here, so along the bottom there's a little toggle. I can zoom in and just get the exact size that I want. That looks okay. We will zoom out again. And now I can right click on this and choose Trim Comp to Work Area. So this little grey bar is referred to as the work area. If I just wanted to preview part of the animation, that's why I can shrink that down. But when we right click, we can trim the entire composition just down to that size. So now I just have a 2 second animation, and we'll see that when it gets to the end, it will start back and loop over that, and we've got a nice consistent pendulum swinging there. Now this doesn't look too bad, but it's still not quite perfect. And let me show you why. I'm just going to move this pendulum over to the side here. I'm going to select that layer, press Ctrl C and Ctrl V, and that will actually make a duplicate of that layer. I'm just going to place this one over beside it. And I will close that bottom one up. As these are swinging, the motion is constant. It's a constant speed at all times. Now, in reality, things don't move at a constant speed at all times. They accelerate and they decelerate. They speed up and they slow down as they change direction. Think of a car. When you get in a car, it has to speed up from 0 all the way up to 60 miles an hour. And then when you hit the brakes, it gradually slows down again. Same thing happens with the pendulum. So we need to apply that little speed up, slow down effect. Let's go to our keyframes here. Again, click this little arrow and expand these out until we can see our rotation keyframes. What I want you to do is click on each keyframe, right click on it, go to Keyframe Assistant and just choose Easy Ease. You'll see that our little icon changes. They look a bit like an hourglass. We're going to do that to all 3 of these. Just right click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. Right click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. And this will make a very subtle but important difference to the animation. So if we compare the 2 of them, you'll see that our new one on the right, with that Easy Ease applied, sort of slows down and then speeds up. So as it gets to the extent of its movement, it kind of slows to a stop very briefly and then speeds up again as it gets towards the bottom. This better replicates real life, real animation, and this is a very important principle of any kind of animation. In fact, there are 12 principles of animation. Classic animation applies these 12 principles, and we'll discuss these throughout the different videos. Different things like squash and stretch, anticipation, appeal, and ease in and ease out, which we're covering here. So this is the only one we're going to cover today, ease in, ease out. And it's all about this idea of accelerating and decelerating in and out of rest to make things appear more natural. So that's all I want to cover today on this little tutorial. We've looked at keyframes, we've looked at the ease, we've looked at bringing assets in here and changing compositions. One final thing, when we keyframe a property, i.e. turn this little stopwatch blue, we always want to leave that on. Don't ever click that stopwatch again, or that will have the effect of deleting all our keyframes, and that's them gone. Now we can press Ctrl Z and bring them back, but be careful you don't actually deactivate this because you will lose all your animation data. Once we turn this on, we're assuming that we're keeping it on for the entirety of the project. Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next video.